The silver fork trembled in Elena. Martinez's hand as the janitor's whispered words cut through the elegant. "Restaurant's ambient noise, please help her." 3 simple words that would shatter everything. She thought she knew about the empire she'd built. Elena had arrived at Luminosa, her flagship restaurant, in downtown Chicago, dressed in a modest cardigan and faded jeans, her usually immaculate hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. No one recognized her. That was the point after 15 years of building a restaurant, empire worth over $200 million, she'd grown tired of the curated smiles and rehearsed compliments that greeted her at every establishment she owned. She wanted the truth, the raw, unfiltered reality of what happened when the CEO wasn't watching. The reservation had been made under a false name. She'd chosen a Tuesday evening deliberately, avoiding the weekend rush when management would be most attentive. As she settled into a corner booth, partially obscured by an ornate divider, Elena observed everything with the trained eye of someone who'd started washing dishes at 16 and clawed her way to the top of the culinary world. The service was impeccable, just as she'd designed it to be. Servers moved with practiced grace, their smiles warm but professional. The sommelier recommendations were spot in the appetizers, arrived at the perfect temperature, plated with the artistic precision that had earned Luminosa 3 Michelin stars. Everything was exactly as it should be, yet something felt off. Elena noticed that in the small things. First, the way the staff's laughter died the moment the kitchen door swung open. How the hostess's smile never quite reached her. Eyes, the tension that seemed to ripple through the dining room. Whenever a particular manager, a tall man with slicked back hair named Derek, emerged from the back offices, she was contemplating whether to extend her undercover visit when she noticed the janitor. He was elderly, perhaps in his late 60s, with silver hair and deep lines etched around kind eyes that had clearly seen too much of life's hardships. He moved slowly, methodically, cleaning a table that had just been vacated near the kitchen entrance, but his hand shook, and twice Elena watched him steady himself against a chair, his breathing labored. That's when Derek approached him, his voice low but sharp enough to carry to Elena's acute hearing. "Miguel, you missed a spot again. I don't know why we keep you around. There are plenty of younger people who could do this job better and faster." The old man Miguel simply nodded, his shoulders hunching further as he turned to clean a spot that already looked spotless to Elena's eyes. Something cold settled in her chest. This wasn't the culture she'd tried to build. Luminosa was supposed to be different. She'd implemented policies, training programs, guidelines that emphasized respect and dignity for every employee, from the executive chef down to the newest dishwasher. She'd been that dishwasher, once invisible and undervalued. She'd sworn her restaurants would be different. Elena was about to intervene when Miguel suddenly moved toward her table, his cleaning cart rattling softly. As he wiped down the empty table beside her, he leaned in slightly, his voice barely a whisper. "Please help her." Elena's fork clattered against her plate. "Excuse me?" But Miguel had already moved away, disappearing through a service door that led to the back corridors. She sat frozen, her heart pounding. "Help who? What did he mean?" Without thinking, Elena rose from her seat and followed, abandoning her half-eaten entree. The service corridor was dimly lit, a stark contrast to the restaurant's golden ambiance. She could hear voices ahead, Miguel's gentle tone and someone else. A woman crying. Elena rounded a corner and stopped. In a small alcove near the storage room, Miguel knelt beside a young woman in a server's uniform. She couldn't have been more than 22, her dark hair falling forward to hide her face as her shoulders shook with quiet sobs. Miguel held her hand, murmuring soft words in Spanish. "What's going on here?" Elena asked softly, not wanting to startle them. The young woman's head snapped up, fear flashing across her tear-stained face. I'm sorry, I was just taking a moment. I'll get back to work, I promise." "No, wait." Elena held up her hands. "I'm not management. I'm just a customer. Are you okay?" Miguel looked at Elena with those weathered eyes, and she saw something there. Recognition, perhaps, or hope. "This is Rosa," he said quietly. "Her daughter is sick, very sick. She needs medicine, but Rosa cannot afford it. The insurance, it doesn't cover everything. I have to work," Rosa said, trying to stand. "Derek said if I take any time off, even unpaid, he'll fire me." My daughter has leukemia. The treatments, they're so expensive. I can't lose this job, but I can't. Her voice broke. I can't lose my little girl either. Elena felt something crack open inside her chest. This young woman working in a restaurant, suffering while the manager she'd trusted threatened her job. While she, Elena, had been celebrating record profits and planning her next expansion. How old is your daughter? Elena heard herself ask. 7, her name is Sophia. Sophia, the same age Elena's daughter would have been, if she'd lived past those first fragile months. The same age that still haunted Elena's dreams, the ghost of what could have been. Tell me everything, Elena said, sliding down to sit against the wall beside them. And Rosa did. She told her about Sophia's diagnosis 6 months ago, about the mounting medical bills that had consumed her savings, about working double shifts while trying to be present for her, daughter's chemotherapy appointments, about Derek's increasingly hostile attitude, his snide comments about her lack of commitment, his threats to replace her with someone more reliable. Miguel, it turned out, had been helping where he could, covering for Rosa when she ran late, slipping her money from his own meager paycheck, staying late to finish her closing duties when she had to rush to the hospital. He'd been doing it all quietly, without recognition, simply because it was the right thing to do. Why didn't you tell anyone in corporate? Elena asked. There are programs, resources? I tried, Rosa whispered. I filled out the forms. I called the number on the employee portal, but Derek said he'd handle it. That was 3 months ago. I never heard anything back. Elena's hands clenched into fists. She thought of all the systems she'd put in place, all the safety nets designed to catch exactly this kind of situation. And somehow this manager had circumvented them all, either through neglect or deliberate cruelty. Wait here, Elena said, standing up. Both of you. She walked back through the corridor with purpose, her disguise forgotten. She found Derek in the manager's office, feet up on the desk, scrolling through his phone. Who are you? He asked, annoyed at the interruption. I'm Elena Martinez. I own this restaurant. I own all of them. She watched the color drain from his face. And you're fired. What happened next moved with the swift efficiency that had made. Elena, a billionaire by 40. Phone calls were made. Within an hour, her head of human resources arrived along with her legal team. Rosa's situation was immediately addressed, not as charity, but as the employee benefit it should have been from the start. Elena personally ensured that Sophia would receive the treatment she needed, covered entirely by the company's enhanced health plan that Elena expanded on the spot. But it was Miguel who surprised her most. You have a good heart, he said to her later that night, as the restaurant closed and the last customers departed. I saw it in your eyes even before I knew who you were. That's why I asked for help. You recognized me? He smiled. I've worked here since you opened Luminosa. I remember when you came for the launch, how you spent hours in the kitchen thanking every worker. My eyesight isn't what it was, but I never forget a kind person. Elena felt tears prick her eyes. Why didn't you come to me before? About Rosa, about everything? Because I'm just a janitor, Miguel said simply. Who listens to us? That night, Elena didn't go home to her penthouse overlooking Lake Michigan. She went to the hospital, where she met Sophia, a tiny girl with wise eyes and a brave smile, hooked up to more tubes than any child should ever have to endure. Rosa wept when Elena promised that Sophia would receive the best care available, that she'd never have to choose between her daughter and her job again. In the weeks that followed, Elena restructured everything. She implemented mandatory management reviews, created anonymous reporting systems with teeth, and established a hardship fund for employees facing medical or family crises. But more than that, she started visiting her restaurants regularly. Without announcement, dressed plainly, listening. She discovered that Derek wasn't an isolated case. There were other managers who'd let power corrupt them, other employees suffering in silence. But she also found hundreds of Miguels, quiet heroes doing extraordinary things, simply because it was right. 6 months later, Luminosa hosted a special dinner. Sophia, now in remission and gaining strength daily, cut the ribbon on the new Miguel Santos Employee Wellness Center. Named after the janitor who'd taught a CEO that true leadership meant listening to the quietest voices. Miguel, promoted to employee advocate with a salary that finally matched his worth, gave a short speech. I only said 3 words, he told the gathered crowd. But Ms. Martinez, she heard 1,000. Elena watched from the back, her heart full in a way it hadn't been in years. She'd built an empire, but it was 3 whispered words from an elderly janitor that had taught her what it truly meant to lead, not from the top down, but from the heart outward. As the evening wound down and Sophia danced with her mother, finally strong enough to be a child again, Elena caught Miguel's eye across the room. He nodded and she nodded back, a silent understanding between 2 people who'd learned that the most powerful thing we can do isn't build wealth or fame, it's simply to see each other, truly see each other, and choose kindness. 3 words had changed everything. Please help her. But it was what came after those words that mattered most. The listening. The action, the choice to be better. Elena had been undercover that night. But what she'd discovered wasn't a problem with her restaurant. It was a problem with herself. She'd been so focused on the view from the top that she'd forgotten what it looked like from the ground where she'd started. She would never forget again